University of Idaho, a college town of about 25,000 people, an institution of higher learning in Moscow, Idaho, U.S. It is a university that consists of colleges of agricultural and life sciences, art and architecture, business and economics, and engineering, to mention but a few. They are known widely for providing a high-quality, accessible education to leading breakthroughs in clean water, cybersecurity, healthcare, and fire science. Undisputably, the University of Idaho is notably the best in Idaho City. Idaho City, known for its peaceful atmosphere, hasn't experienced murder since 2015, which makes it one of the safest places to stay in the USA until a bizarre event occurred. Moving on, some University of Idaho students live off campus, possibly at home in the rural college town of Moscow, Idaho. There was a certain 3-story home that held 6 bedrooms, 2 on each floor, that 6 students accommodated as their temporary residence while schooling in the university. 2 out of 3 of the students who lived in the 3-story home were identified as Madison Mogen and Zana Kernodle. Kyle Goncalves recently moved out of the house, but returned to the house to attend a nearby party. Ethan Chapin, who happened to be Zana Kernodle's boyfriend, does not live in the house, but happens to sleep over the night, the day the unfortunate incident takes place. The 4 names previously mentioned happen to be the 4 victims who lost their lives on November 13, 2022. A day that left many puzzled, many questions unanswered, and a lot of fear among the community and the University of Idaho students. An incident that later got the signature name University of Idaho Killings. Little or no information was known about the victims other than that there were 3 females and 1 male. They were reportedly in their early 20s as Madison Mogen and Kyle Goncalves recently turned 21. Zana Kernodle, as well as her boyfriend Ethan Chapin, were just 20 years old at the time the incident occurred. It is nothing short of a sad ending, as teens who were just about discovering their purpose in life ended up with a closed chapter even before they could start with their first chapter of life. The motive behind the killings of the 4 students has not yet been unveiled, but the how has been figured, investigated, and deliberated on to figure out the perpetrator and reason behind committing such a dreadful crime. It all started on November 2nd when 2 of the 4 victims, Zana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin, who were reported to be in a relationship, went to an on-campus party at the nearby Sigma Chi fraternity that was a short walk from the King Road apartment house where the roommates lived. This fraternity is known to be the largest North American fraternal society to cultivate and maintain high ideals of friendship, justice, and learning, upon which Sigma Chi was founded. That was little information about the on-campus fraternity party they both attended. The on-campus party lasted for just an hour, around 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., as Zana and Ethan returned to their 3-level house by 1:45 a.m. Goncalves and Mogen, on the other hand, went to a sports bar in Moscow, which goes by the name Corner Club. Pending the time they were both at the bar, Goncalves posted a series of photos on her Instagram page with the caption, "One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day." The picture features the 4 victims. One of them has Mogen sitting on Goncalves' shoulder, with Chapin and Kernodle standing next to them, taking into consideration they lived together and attended the same college. This shows that both the roommates do share bonds and were quite close, and this doesn't seem to warrant any surprise, as after spending the night at the bar chilling and having fun, they both decided to go home, ordered some food from a nearby truck, the Grub Truck, and waited for about 10 minutes for their $10 food. Both Goncalves and Mogen could be seen chit-chatting while in wait for their food, and there didn't seem to be any danger or tension among them, as they were eagerly waiting for their food while chatting with other people, waiting to get their fast food as well. A few minutes passed, and they both got ready to go, ordered a ride home, a trip of about 1 mile, and got back home around 1:56 a.m., which was a little later than when Ethan and Zana got home. By 1:56 a.m., the 4 students were all at home, and everything was going fine. They never knew it would be their last night of spending time and making memories together. Goncalves was feeling a little bit anxious, or what could be considered an ending moment, as she picked up her phone and called her former longtime boyfriend, what could be considered her ex-boyfriend. The motive or reason behind her calls was unknown, but it might be to try to convene a message to him or apologize to him, but there was no solid reason. It was discovered that she wanted to try to connect with her ex-boyfriend, as she called repeatedly for 7 times with no answer from her ex-boyfriend. The call was made around 2:26 a.m. to 2:44 a.m. Desperate to figure out what could be the reason he refused to pick up, Mogan also tried to call him around 2:44 a.m. to 2:52 a.m. and tried thrice, but it yielded the same result, as he didn't pick up her call too. Fast forward to 4 a.m., Kernodle received a DoorDash order, an online food ordering and food delivery platform. Shortly after, the heinous crime was believed to be committed between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. on November 13th. At exactly 11:58 a.m., a 911 call was placed to the police by one of the victim's roommates, whose name was kept anonymous by the police due to safety reasons. The caller requested assistance from the police official, as the caller claimed that one of the roommates was unconscious. The police rushed to the scene in the hope of reviving someone unconscious, only to be left with a surprise on their arrival at the scene. On arriving at the scene, the door of the victim was left open. No forced entry or broken door. It was a well-planned murder of 4 students murdered overnight. The 4 victims were stabbed on the 2nd and 3rd floors of their rooms. The victims were not restrained or tried struggling. It sounded like a quiet murder with no tension on the killer's part. Mogan and Goncalves were both found in Mogan's bedroom, while Kernodle and Chapin were found in the room in cold blood. The necessary investigation kicked in place immediately, and the surviving 2 housemates were taken in for questioning. After several questioning and investigations, the police concluded that the other 2 roommates were not directly or indirectly involved with the case and had to look further into the case. They started by making sure they unraveled and confirmed some of the victims' past locations over the last 24 hours. This was done by gathering a lot of evidence about their whereabouts, or all information about them from their roommates, and verifying it with surveillance cameras. The first was when 2 of the victims, Zana and Ethan, went to a fraternity party, which was verified due to the surveillance around the city where the party took place. The information about Goncalves and Mogan going to the bar and then purchasing food at the nearby truck was equally verified, as the truckman was questioned, and he claimed the duo were happily chatting and it didn't feel like they were actually in danger. With this in mind, the police had to retrace their investigations back to when they both arrived home, and immediately after the DoorDash brought the ordered food to Kernodle around 4 a.m. Just before that, the numerous calls made by both Goncalves and her friend Mogan were equally investigated, and the police claimed the recipient of the call wasn't their man, as investigations had been made when the call was discovered due to tracking of the call history of both the victims' phone. Footage of the house was secured, and the police claimed to hear the sound of whimpering, loud thuds and the dog barking continuously around 4:17 a.m. The original reports were made that the other surviving roommates were in their room on the ground floor and were not attacked or taken hostage by the homicide killer. This seems like the killer has a target, as he left the ground floor and proceeded to the 1st and 2nd floors where the other 2 victims lived. However, the affidavit reports claimed that one of the surviving roommates was sleeping on the 2nd floor, the same floor as Kernodle and Chaplin, before waking up to a strange sound of Goncalves and her dog. The unattacked roommates later heard a sound saying, "There is someone here," according to her. The voice sounded like Goncalves, but the officers believed it might have been Kernodle, as the forensic team pinpointed that she was on her TikTok around 4:12 a.m. The surviving roommate in her speech was confused at this point and opened the door to confirm the voice. He could not figure out anything, closed it, just to open it the 2nd time. The 2nd time she opened the door, She heard what sounded like a cry from Kernodle's room and heard a male voice saying, "It's okay, I am going to help you." The puzzled and confused roommates locked her door but opened it the third time and claimed to see a figure in black clothing with a mask covering both his nose and mouth. The shape of the figure was not much of a masculine man, but athletic built. He was a little above average height as he appeared to be 5 feet, 10 inches tall, walking towards her room. The man whom she did not recognize walked past her in a jiffy moment without noticing her as she claimed, and the figure exited through a sliding door. She was in a shocked and frozen state and locked herself back in the room. The case left many questions unanswered as there was no single clue as to who committed the crime. All evidence was looked into and there were no signs of the killer. The investigation was so tedious that it took 3 agencies to work together on the case: the Moscow Police Department, the Idaho State Police, and the Latah County Sheriff's Office. All in all, it took 130 members of the 3 agencies to start working on the case. This outlines how meticulously planned the crime was. The Latah County coroner conducted autopsies on the 4 victims on November 17th, and they all seemed to be stabbed multiple times with fatal wounds on their chest and upper body. It was concluded that the victim may have been attacked while sleeping on their bed, which raises a million-dollar question. How did the killer ends up in both rooms without breaking through or forcing his way inside the room? This poses a great danger and threat to the community, as it seems a ravaging killer has just awoken and killed people without leaving a single trace and getting it done swiftly, as this was done without a single weapon discovered that could have justified the killer's use in stabbing the victims. 2 days later, on November 19th, the police hadn't found any single clue that could lead them to the culprit and requested all the surveillance video of the house as of the night of the killing. They didn't stop there, as a phone tip line and email was created for students to drop or submit potential evidence to the officials. 2 weeks later, on December 5th, more than 2,600 emailed tips, 2,700 phone calls, and 1,000 digital media were gotten from the public to these tip lines. On December 24th, the investigative team reported having received at least 15,000 tips regarding the case. There was a tip that wasn't taken much into consideration, which was that Goncalves has a stalker. This tip wasn't verified as there didn't appear to be any stalker, and if there was, it would have made sense if the stabbings had ended with only Goncalves and Mogan, as they both slept in the same room. After receiving a sequence of tips, the police concluded they were searching for 22,000 fifth-generation Hyundai Elantras, produced around 2011 and 2013. A clear description was given to avoid misrepresentation of the car and its owner. The car was on their top list of searches as it was seen and captured multiple times around the time of the murder, making multiple passes along the same route. Another surveillance camera captured the car passing about 3 times by the victims' homes. It first made its way around 3:29 a.m., 4:04 a.m., and 4:20 a.m. when it was seen speeding away from the victim's house. It seems the investigating officers have a clear breakthrough of the case now as they work tirelessly to find the reported car. The car was traced, and the owner was eventually located, a 28-year-old man, Bryan Christopher Kohberger. Kohberger was born on November 21, 1994, in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. Shortly after finishing Pleasant Valley High School in 2013, a public high school in Broadheadsville, Pennsylvania, he attended Monroe Career and Technical Institute in Bartonville, but dropped out a year later. Kohberger later attended Northampton Community College in Bethlehem, another public learning institution but a public community college instead, where he earned an associate degree in psychology, which was the study of mind and behavior, which was earned in 2018. After graduating from Northampton, he worked as a security guard for the Pleasant Valley School District, the same school district where his father previously worked as a maintenance worker for many years and his mother for a time as a substitute teacher. The influence of his father might have helped him get there, but that doesn't sound like a well-deserved job for a psychology degree holder. A few years later, he received a BA, in 2020, and an MA. In the summer of 2022, Kohberger moved to Washington State to pursue a PhD. At Washington State University in Pullman, its campus is less than 8 miles, which is about 13 kilometers west of Moscow. He sure was the type that took his studies seriously, but who knew he was using or planning to conduct crime with his criminology? At the time of the killings, he was a doctoral student in criminology and had completed his first semester, there 9 days before his arrest. Kohberger was terminated from his teaching assistant role on December 19, with the decision being based on his unsatisfactory performance as a teaching assistant, including his failure to meet the norms of professional behavior in his interactions with the faculty. A high number of the evidence was pointing towards this young man, just described, but according to findings, he was more of a cunning man. First of all, data shows that Kohberger's phone stopped connecting to the network around 2:47 a.m. in Pullman on November 13th, before reconnecting around 4:48 a.m. near Blaine, Idaho, which is near U.S. Highway 95, south of Moscow. The second piece of evidence that seems fishy is that his cell phone data also show that his phone utilized a cell tower near the victim's residence around 9 a.m. on November 13th, approximately 5 hours after the killings. It didn't end there, as police also obtained data that indicated that his phone pinged from the cell phone tower nearest the residence at least 12 times between June 2022 and November 13th. Lastly, investigators had additionally obtained a sample of DNA from the crime scene that did not belong to any of the victims. The DNA was found on a tan leather knife sheath on Mogan's bed, and using a public genealogy database, authorities identified a partial match to an individual with a familial connection to Kohberger. Investigators then traced the DNA to Kohberger by matching it to DNA found in the trash that was recovered from his family's home in Pennsylvania. With the above evidence in place, the arrest of Kohberger was concluded, but before the arrest took place, the police tried to know more about Kohberger from afar to see if they could discover more evidence. Investigators did this by first monitoring Kohberger outside of his parents' Pennsylvania home. He was seen multiple times wearing surgical gloves and observed putting trash bags inside the garbage can of a neighbor. The items were sent to the Idaho State Lab for testing. Authorities also said Kohberger had cleaned his car, inside and outside, not missing an inch. This might seem like a normal activity, but to the police, it wasn't. It was a sign of being a dreadful and cunning individual, as someone so careful, like that could commit what could be described as the perfect crime. The police, not seeing anything that could be used as evidence against him again than the previous one, arrested him eventually. He was taken into custody by an FBI SWAT team and Pennsylvania State Police on December 30th at the home of his parents in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. According to authorities, a search of the home where Kohberger was arrested revealed a knife, a pistol, and a black face mask, as well as ID cards inside a glove inside a box. You should take note of the black face masks, as according to one of the surviving roommates, the figure he claimed to see at the house has a black mask that was used to cover his face as well as his nose. At the time of his arrest, authorities found Kohberger in the kitchen dressed in a shirt and shorts, while wearing examination gloves and putting trash into separate Ziploc baggies. His actions seem meticulous, and suspicions like he was trying to get something done, something that wasn't known to both the police and the public. The public felt an ease of tension as Kohberger was arrested. He was arrested on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 felony count of burglary, was appointed a public defender, and was detained without bond at the Monroe County Correctional Facility in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. On his return to the county courthouse on January 3, 2023, he agreed to extradition, a process of sending an individual back to their home country to face the consequences of a crime they allegedly committed there. On January 4th, he was flown to Pullman, a public airport in the Northwest United States, located in Washington. Then he was driven to the Lata County Jail in Moscow and held without bail. Kohberger made his first appearance in the Lata County Courthouse on January 5th and was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary for breaking into a home with the intent to commit a felony. 1 week later, on January 12th, Kohberger made his second appearance for a status conference in the same room at the courthouse. On May 17, 2023, the Lata County District Court announced that Kohberger was indicted by a grand jury where a group of citizens were chosen at random to hear evidence presented by the prosecutor and decide whether there was probable cause to believe Kohberger committed the crime. The jury that was scheduled for June 26th was later canceled after the indictment. In May 2023, Kohberger refused to enter a plea during his first court appearance after being charged with a crime. His attorney said that he was standing silent on the charges. This shows how cunning Kohberger and his attorney can be. The judge entered a not guilty plea for him afterward, and on June 26th, the Lata County Prosecutor's Office announced they were seeking the death penalty given the aggravating circumstances of the first-degree murder charges. Kohberger is being held in the Lata County Jail and has been denied not to be released from jail while they await his trial. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges. According to the press, the purported cell phone evidence is strong, but it's not putting someone on someone's doorstep. It's putting someone in someone's neighborhood. And there is a significant difference. Goncalves' family, on the other hand, claims to have discovered Kohberger's Instagram account, which revealed that he followed both Kaylee and Maddie. From our investigation of the account, it appeared to be the real Bryan Kohberger account, they claimed. For unknown reasons, the Kernodle family has been relatively quiet about the case and has not raised any bars whatsoever. The case has not been fully decided yet, as a lot of proceedings are still ongoing. In regards to the victims' houses, there is no doubt it is now a nightmare for students, and this made the University of Idaho President C. Scott Green announce on February 24, 2023, that the house would be donated to the university and demolished afterward. In addition, a scholarship was created in the name of 3 of the victims, Kernodle, Chapin, and Mogan. A memorial garden for the victims on the University of Idaho campus is being planned as we speak and will be put in place soon. As for Kohberger, his case is yet to be fully solved.